with you, so promise to ask for your guidance and your direction as we make decisions for the Cherokee people in Jesus' name.
Oh,
Dick Lay.
Here.
Mike Shambaugh.
Here.
Mary Bakershaw. Denise Taylor. Here. Victoria Vasquez. David Walkenstick. Brian Warner.
Motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Reports. Management resources.
Rex, glad to have everybody here today. Appreciate you coming. You know, we try to have one of these at Bull Hall, so you can go to the Buffalo Games. And we try to have this one down here so you can see the beautiful scenery and show you the land that we own on both sides of the place. If you don't mind, I'd like to have GD to introduce all of his people here. GD?
Okay, thank you, Bruce, and thank y'all for coming. Love to have you down here in this Longy. This is kind of our office, and we have a work bar down there. We've sold most of the work goes on place down there, but let's do the same thing here as we do at Bull Holler. We have about the same amount of staff, about 8, 9 employees, and but ask them to come in. Some of them. We're busy cooking food right now for y'all at 11 o'clock. I got hamburgers going down there, and I got fish going in another barn down there.
Well, keep doing that.
Trent, Steve, Virgil, I think, the other people from Bull Holler, they're down there. And here's John.
Oh, yeah.
He's the director down here, superintendent at Bull Holler. And McCullough, Kathy Nelson, of course, she's up at Compage. She's my right arm. And Audrey, she's the summer help forces this year, and so we appreciate that, and appreciate y'all coming. And hope you get a chance to look it all over, and we're really proud of I'm really proud of what they do down here, and they do a good job. So thank you.
That's about it, Rex.
Thank you, Rex.
You bet.
Bruce, I noticed on page 8, and I know you set up 10 departments, activities, stuff like this. This is a 60 by 60 tent set up at a day for private event. Now, can you explain what we're doing at private events?
Sometimes we have Cherokee Nation citizens that request, like that was a wedding reception, and it was a Cherokee Nation citizen, and sometimes we have that with those kind of things.
Do we get paid for that? With all of our workers going down and just setting it up, pay for the tent and all that
Yes,
stuff?
we charge for that. Now, there might be occasions that fee is waived for some reason, but when we set up those things for, at events, we charge for those.
Well, I didn't know. I had some concerns about being private parties and stuff like that. That's the reason I mentioned it.
Okay.
I'm not so sure that I really agree with doing something like that because you could probably be doing those all the time year long if you work out after the meeting. I don't know. That just caught my attention when it's private.
Well, I'll just tell you,
Most of our stuff needs to be in the open meeting.
I'll tell you, most of the time, Marty, we set up for funerals.
That's public. All right.
I mean, that's
What I'm getting at is private.
Okay.
So I think we just need to be a little careful about that.
Okay.
Thanks.
You bet.
Congratulations.
Sure. Well, welcome to God's country. I think one of echo this. This is where I grew up. There's a lot of you there. I'm sure it's true. I have two of my employees with me. While Bruce's group handles the manual labor. Lane Kendall is with me, and Joel Bean is right behind me. Two of 3 people that work on our CMS units as far as the administrative parts. Someone and Deanna Amanda that will be in the office today. I have
on that one. What's happening, the building is deteriorating, grass is starting to grow off in the parking lot, grass is growing up. I know I've asked this 2 or 3 different times, but we need to make a move, do something with the building. Either get it completely in our names, or get it leased out, or rent it out, or do something with it. I'd like to get a meeting set up between you, since the parties and Grove, if you can't talk about it anyway.
From time to time, I send, gentlemen, that I want to bring kind of do anything else, they're interested in it, and they seem to be still interested in it, and rather than be somewhat, they haven't given me any proposal.
Well, I think the thing of it is, yeah, they're still interested in it, but just talked to them the other day. I think we just need to get a meeting, and I'll ask him to call you or call Bruce and set up a meeting and talk about it.
If you have my contact information, I can probably, I can send that contact.
Okay. Thank you, thank you.
Ginger,
I'll have to talk with you after the meeting about this plan.
Any other questions?
Ginger, would you assess the amount of lease land you have if you're going to get into weed business on this end of the counties here? Yeah.
CMSU,
Yes. Yeah, give me the amount of land that we currently have, and then the ones that we have that are leased that we possibly use for that.
probably ask Lane or Joel. Joel, do you have an idea of what our CMS units bring in? Do you?
Money wise,
Yeah.
probably 150, 200,000 a year. How many acres would we have if we're going to get into the beef business or to run so many head on so many acres there?
Probably close to 3,000. If you talk about, and not all that's open acres, I mean, but you're talking about what we leased out, probably is under fence, so it's quite close to that.
Would you split that up for me, north and south?
Yeah, we can come up with that pretty quick. I mean, not right off my top of my head, but
30
Okay,
days.
just have to do it.
30 days. would be good. Okay, thanks.
Any other questions?
Ginger, on a piece of property that you and I and Mr. Bruce, it's not a company, it's on Broadway Street. It's Cherokee Nation property, it's been abandoned and the grass is really high and gaps are under the floor. Can you send somebody up there to spruce that up? It's right downtown,
Where is it?
Collinsville.
On Main Street?
It's on Broadway Street.
Broadway. Sure. Have we talked about that before?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, we'll take care of it.
Housing authority was in it.
Oh, they were?
Is it a music compound?
It's just a house, right?
Just a house.
Just a
Awesome.
house. Okay.
I talked to Gary about it, nothing's ever been done.
We'll see. Okay,
We
we'll
need to
what-
see if it's reverted back to us, or it's still under the house.
We'll check it out.
Anyway, we did do that.
Perfect.
Ginger, I think Joel was gonna check on the piece of restricted property today, and Joel, have you found out anything about that property that's been going on for a year?
We, Lane is gonna go by there Thursday and check it out. He's gonna be in Craig County, so he's gonna go that day and look at it, discuss that not too long ago on a side session.
The guy is moving more and more stuff on the thing, and you know how that goes, you can't stop it so many years, it can be taken over, so we're losing restricted land daily, so concerned about this house and property right there in jail. I'd asked about this about 7 or 8 months ago, and it never got done. Captain Shambo asked about it a month ago, and we haven't seen any activity on it yet, so I think it's getting to this point, or I'm getting to this point, when we request something, as a council member, I think we need to get some answers. I don't know what the rest of the council thinks about, but it gets kind of frustrating when I go and ask for something and you don't get it done. I don't know how to go about doing it unless we ask, put our director, this to the chief, and see if he can get it done. I guess I'm on a little bit of a rant this morning, but,
Just let me know if you can contact me as far as getting started, I'll see
Well, I think we did. I think Councilor Shambo asked in committee meeting last week.
I was on, I'm sorry.
All right, thank you, sir.
Any other questions?
Visit with Congressman this weekend regarding legislation that has to do with putting land in the or I guess other people inheriting trust property have to be a half or more place on them to acquire the lands.
Are you talking about the
Can someone kind of
27
tell me what's the name of that act or
The Stigler Act.
the Stigler Act? So what's the status on that? Can anyone entertain that?
I think that Sarah probably has a report on that in her.
I'll address that in my report going to council.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Mr. Elkins?
Yes, sir. Good morning, sir, and ladies and gentlemen. I'll just briefly go through our report. I won't go through every line or anything, but I will say this. Yes, exactly. The first page of our report, you know, they say you can't manage something if you can't measure it. So we try to put these things into a numerical system so that we know where we stand. And some of the things, you know, we have much less than 100% of what we anticipate through the year. This is, we try to do that on the previous years, kind of measure that. But these are all, almost every one of these are associated with requests that we get either from other departments, the housing authority, things like that. It's not that we go out. We do some measure of this for individual citizens, but the majority, the lion's share of it is through the housing authority and through other programs that request this. The bottom thing on that F is mold and indoor air quality. We always use acronyms in environmental, IAQ, indoor air quality. And mold is part of the indoor air. Actually, lead-based paint by regulation is, but we've done so much of that for so many years. I was questioned about, I was at the Intertribal, and they asked us to do a presentation, or Sarah asked me to do it on lead-based paint and lead. And so we did it on the, not just lead and how that can affect you, but lead-based paint. And then the Cherokee Nation, I'm sure as you know, has a lead-based paint certification program. So if people are coming out and doing lead-based paint work in the Cherokee Nation, we make sure that they're certified, that they've had the training, that they've had the follow-up training every year so that they know what they're doing. You know, they say that lead poisoning is the #1 preventable childhood disease. And one of the part of the presentation we made is that if a child's exposed to lead, I mean, it can be bad enough for adults. It can be a huge impact, depending on how, you know, I used to be a plumber. People say if I'm talking for 2 minutes, I'm going to tell people I was a plumber. Because I used to be. And I'm somewhat proud of that. But I remember when I did cast iron lead joints, I'd be standing over a pot of melted lead, just breathing out. I had no idea. And I'd get a ladle of that, pour it in a lead joint, you know. Those are issues, and that may be some of my issues right now. But with children, it's exceptional. It's an exceptional issue. And so that's why we make sure that people are trained, they know how to do this. Even our own folks, we ensure that they're trained and that they're doing things properly. You know, the rest of our report, there's 4 other pages. These are things that we can't readily put in a numerical thing. They're things outside of, you know, you wouldn't want to just hear that we did some water sampling, we did that 5 times. You want to know where they're at, what they're doing with it. You know, you question me, some of the council folks question me every few months, well, how's that going, where are we doing it? Like water sampling, we do that strategically at places where the state and the feds are not sampling. So we don't want to be repetitive with that. We want to get, you know, we do places that Cherokee folks tend to fish, tend to gig, do that kind of thing. And so we try to use the money that we get strategically to get the best bang for the buck. I think that's all I'll review, and that unless you have any questions. And I'll be happy to either take those or get some research.
You guys still do black mold testing?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And that's the F on that is mold and indoor air quality.
Okay, have the, I guess, so what's the process to get you the
Absolutely. You can get me or Adam, Wayne Isaacs is the senior director over the environmental programs. Either one of us, you get us that information and we'll certainly get it done.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Absolutely.
I have a question. The last thing in your report is the enterprise.
Yeah. What is that?
Uh-huh.
That's just a program from the EPA. It's not something where we do work per se. It's a data collection of things. So all the data that we get, we maintain a certain level of quality with that. All the folks have to go through that training so that we have a certain level of training in data quality, data management, things like that. If we don't do that, we can't put that data that we get, water, air, and all this other stuff, into the federal database.
So it's a matter of trying to get, everybody's collecting data all over the
Absolutely.
country, trying to get on uniform so that
Absolutely.
it's cohesive. If you
Right,
get
there's no
something
sense in us
together,
getting data over here that's a little bit different than data over here. It's not comparable. And we work with you, and I've mentioned this several times. Generally, the data we put in here is Cherokee Nation data.
Right.
But we are the head agency for a consortium of tribes called Intertribal Environmental Council, ICA. And so we have a conference every year. We work with the EPA on this. And I think there's 40 some odd tribes. It waxes and wanes on that. But we work with those tribes to do training. We work with them to, so that they can do grant work. It won't take away from us, but we help them with grants that they can get so they can do this type of thing. So that they're doing that in the state. And that's in Oklahoma, New Mexico, Louisiana, Texas, all of what we call Region 6. And that's EPA's region.
So everybody's trying to check the same things.
Absolutely.
Keep the data in the same format, so it's actually workable data.
Absolutely, yes
Okay.
ma'am.
All right. That's all.
And it's of the same quality that the feds would do that.
With the recent alarming report on Adair County, what are your initiatives, or do you test Adair County area, this area?
Oh yeah, there's plenty of places in Adair County that we do. Are you talking about water analysis?
Anything.
Absolutely.
Anything.
And then Wayne has just developed a thing and gone with Secretary Hill on this, where the tribe is putting money into looking, I mean, the feds do this too, but the tribe's doing an initiative where we're looking at water in schools. And, there's a concern with that, again, when I was a plumber, and I said this in that lead presentation, that the intertribal, in the mid-1980s, the feds said that we can't use lead-type solder in our plumbing work. And all the plumbers were up in arms. I was included, and I had no idea about that. I thought, well, that little bit of lead that we solder copper pipes with, what can that make? It does. It makes a huge issue. It leaches out into the water, especially the hot water. And especially when it sits for a long time, then you turn the water on, that lead, just small amounts, will leach into that water. And so we're looking at any type of lead issues that children can come about in schools. And that's something that we've done, always done it to a measure, but now it's a concerted, concentrated effort on those schools.
So there's never ever been a report where there was an alarming amount of toxic materials that, you would have reported that, right?
If we knew about it.
If we knew
But
about it,
what's difficult about that is to say, well, are there any hazardous materials around here? There's this many hazardous materials that you can analyze for in water, air, soil. So we have nowhere near enough money to say, okay, we're going to do it here, 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 all these places for all these things. It's just, it would be it'd be billions of dollars. But what we do is, like for lead, we have a program now, and it stopped for a little while for some reason, but we'll make sure we get it back on board because lead is such an issue with young children. Whenever they go into one of the clinics, they get a finger stick test for lead. And it's a screening test. Doesn't tell exactly, but it gives you a good indication that those kids have a real lab analysis on their blood for lead. Because lead causes children to lose IQ points, just it does. And those IQ points cannot be returned. They're gone. And that, again, may be some of the issues I'm facing. But it does. And it's a huge issue. And it's preventable. All we have to do is keep our children away from lead, whether it be lead paint, lead fumes, whatever, lead residual from gasoline. One of the things we pointed out, it's not so much on the roads, but if you go around an old dirt track that's been there for 60 years, and there's some of them all around here. Those old bank dirt tracks, people use leaded gas in there because that's what they had. A lot of you may not be able enough to remember like me, but you had regular and ethyl, and they both had lead in them. And the exhaust that came out of those was so concentrated. Lead, when it goes in the environment, it goes down immediately. Whether it's in water, it goes down to the soil, to the sediment water, and it goes on the soil when it comes out of exhaust. So around those tracks, that soil around there usually has ungodly amounts of lead in it. Well, what do small kids do when you take them to the track and they play? They're going to sit down right beside them, goof around right there. I did it, you did it. And what do? They not just play, their hands go in their mouth. And that's where kids get that. And what we do when we find out that there's lead, a child has elevated blood lead levels, we do an inspection and a risk assessment. It might not be lead-based paint, and it might not be they go to the track with their parents. It might be that they're getting some of that in school. Maybe some of their peers at school have elevated blood lead levels. Maybe they're playing on open soil where somehow or another, maybe they had lead-based paint on the outside of their house, and that deteriorated down and got in that soil, and they play in that. Where do kids play at houses? Well, if it's nasty and rainy and cold outside, it's a perfect table for them to play on a windowsill. Well, if you got lead-based paint in that, those windows go up and down, and that lead dust accumulates right there. And it's a very good chance if you had lead-based paint, that dust right there is going to have lead residue in it. So we do an assessment to see, first, do they have lead around there? You can have lead-based paint. That wall might have lead-based paint on it, but it may not be a hazard because it's intact. But we do both. We make sure that if there's lead in there, that those people know where it's at. And then if there is lead in there, is it a hazard to them? We do that for folks all the time.
Okay, so we can assume that could be one of the issues, it could be an issue.
It's one of the issues that we look at the most.
We look at the most.
Yes, ma'am.
My concern is, of course, it's, I'm from this area. I've lived in Oklahoma City the majority of my life, but I look back after I saw this report, and I could name 12 of my cousins, 12, that died at a young age of different things. I made a list. Most recent, James Bunch, and he died. He was a chicken catcher, and probably for Tyson, I'm not sure, for years, as long as I can remember. And he ended up with a disease. They never called it cancer, but it was his brain. It deteriorated his brain. And he died recently. And so I'm sure that, and of course there are there are a numerous amount of things that can, but I look back at just my family.
Right.
And I'm a little bit angry and a little bit sad. And, but it's no one's, I don't know it's not like we're gonna accuse anybody of anything, but it's just like there's so many changes that have to be made at ground level. And you keep talking about children, that's where it has to begin. And it's just my concern because, I've been, many people have contacted me about it, mainly because probably, from this area, and then, I can be case after case of relatives, and I just want the future there for,
Oh, absolutely,
everyone.
man. And we were
I'm
just
sure
pointed to one of my colleagues sent around a thing that said mortality rates in Adair County for like at 50-some, age of 50-some. And you think, good, not that many people die at 40-some or 50. To make that an average of 50-some, that's pretty low. But that doesn't mean they have environmental impacts that are it might be their lifestyle or multiple issues of their lifestyle. It could be the environment they live in, whether they live close to something. Maybe they have something at home that they do, something that they work at that would expose them to some of these things. There's a lot of that. And,
well, I think there's just, of course we're going to look at this issue, not just for Aiken County, but I would think maybe, the surrounding counties, we're in this area. And so anyway, thank you.
Absolutely, absolutely. And if you have any specific questions, just let me know.
I have a quick question.
Absolutely.
If you test a house and it tests positive for mold,
Yep.
real quick, the process, I assume that you give it to somebody else?
It depends on who's asking for the mold test.
Okay,
If we get it from the,
If an individual asks for a mold test on their house, you go get a mold test, it comes back positive, then what?
well, and I know this sounds funny, but we talked about this as far as mold, and I don't know if you were in that, they kind of made fun of me in council. Duly so, but I would say, if you see mold, you have mold, but you don't have to do a test. There's mold in it. We know what mold looks like.
But what I run into a lot of times is in these old houses, you have leaky roofs.
Absolutely.
And, you get up in the ceiling, they can't see up in the ceiling, but, things start falling in at some point in time,
yes,
and you
ma'am.
know
Yes, sir.
that more than likely they probably have it. So, again, so you find it, then what?
Well, if it's an individual, we would give that to them and say, if you have mold, you're getting moisture somewhere. It could be a leak, it could be a water line, it could be condensation from
But
the
as
air.
far as fixing the problem, do you coordinate with them? Do you coordinate with the housing authority? Do they have to go through housing rehab?
We might talk to them and say, if you meet the qualifications of the housing authority, they might help you. Have you ever looked at discussing it with the housing authority? Now, we don't take their applications. We don't know anything
Well, that's why
about it.
I know it had to be handed off somewhere.
We absolutely do that. Every time we refer them, if they meet the qualifications, to check with the housing authority. And then the housing authority might look, check with us and say, you did a mold inspection, and we have that. And they might even call us up and say, what exactly are the issues there? We would tell them about it. A lot of times, then they would do that, and then they might ask us later on, would you do a mold inspection? Because when we do that inspection, it's not just, hey, there's mold right there, but that's a good indication you got mold. But we'll do an air sampling, and we'll do that on the inside of the home and on the outside. And there's no good line of mold. Well, this amount of mold is bad for you.
So, well, no,
Right.
all that's good.
Okay.
But, so the bottom line is if they're gonna get help, it'll be through housing rehab.
Unless they can afford that themselves.
I'm saying that they can.
Oh, yes, sir.
So the
Absolutely.
help available then is through housing rehab.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Okay.
And we almost always refer them to that.
Okay. That's what I need. Thank you.
Unless there's an issue, no. Yes, sir.
Any other questions?
One, I appreciate you bringing that up on that study on Cherokee County. Some of the research I was reading was the air quality, the contaminants that was in the air quality that was drifting from different planes, but it was falling here in this county alone, and they was blaming that for the result of a lot of the illnesses that are taking place here in Cherokee County. I can't remember the contaminant that they were mentioning. I don't know if it was mercury or lead or something along those lines. Sarah, you're the expert here. Did you read the article?
I read the article, but I don't know about the air quality issue.
Air quality.
We have one of the biggest air quality monitoring sites for any tribe and really for the state. That's down here by Delonaghy School. And one of the main issues that we have here, and we have it all over the Cherokee County, is ozone. And that's mainly ozone that has traveled from Oklahoma City, Tulsa area, and people breathe it here. That's the main issue that we have. We're not saying that there aren't issues locally.
What all does your air quality test for? Everything?
Not every, you can't get everything, but
Does
there's,
it test for mercury?
absolutely, absolutely. And there's not really enough to mention on mercury. There's mercury everywhere, I mean, it just is.
But if there's high levels of mercury, that's unhealthy.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And a lot of people think, well, if you have that liquid mercury, that if you drank that or ate that, it would be bad, and it would. But if there was mercury, a pile of that right there, the route of entry into your body, you would breathe it. Mercury evaporates. And so it would be in the air, and you would respire that.
So you're reading, you haven't found anything as far as?
Not a huge concern, no, sir. And we couldn't, there's nothing that we could localize it and say, well, there's this plant or this plant or that. And that is terribly difficult to do. It's not saying you can't do it. If you have suspicions of such and such and they're legitimate issues, somebody, whether it's the state or the feds or the Cherokee Nation, could look at that. We could do it, but it's generally out the stack. If you have a factory, you're gonna measure what's coming out of that stack. Now, don't get me wrong, there's other sources of mercury. They say that landfills have mercury, but we haven't hit huge levels of mercury out of this landfill. Absolutely.
On that wind corridor theory, that's why you got the big one here, because you think it all coming. And that, you know, there's a train of thought about that same system is big. So much where the fuels come down that same corridor at one time.
Well,
have you read those before? Have you ever seen those drawings?
I've seen a lot more of it, not from air, but from water. And that's why Secretary Hill has worked so diligently to get that waste out of Oklahoma. It's gone. And I mean, she can speak to that more readily. She knows more about it, but that's why she worked so hard to get that gone. But I know the main transport air issue is over. Absolutely.
Have there been a request to check the air quality there in southern Delaware County, where all the poultry houses are being built?
Well, we've talked with individuals about that, and years ago we had done a measure of that. We haven't done it throughout all of Delaware County, but a few years ago we had some issues that somebody requested that. We did that analysis, and we really didn't find any more than what you find anywhere. You know, I used to live across from a poultry operation, and it was, I guess for lack of a better term, god awful. Well, that's why we bought a house in town. It was my granddad's allotment land where I live now. At that time, it was just full, and the smell was terrible. One of the biggest things, other than the smell was terrible, my kids would get off the bus in school and throw up. We could not use our water. We couldn't even use it to bathe. So we bought water for coffee and drinking and everything. It was terrible. And on my water table was a 17-foot. And so as soon as, you know, back then they would put the waste anywhere, and they would put it on the ground right in front of us. If it rained, our drinking water was brown immediately. That's the main issues around that are dust from those big trucks. But I talked to my wife into moving back out there because we have rural water, we got a paved road now, Cherokee Nation did it, and we also have natural gas. So the Cherokee Nation got the water line, and so I moved back on my granddad's allotment land. And it's much, and they quit doing chicken, so it's
So
much.
you haven't been at air quality?
Yeah, that's mainly due to dust.
So you haven't been at air quality?
Not lately on that particular thing. I mean, we have done it in the past, but we haven't found any major issues.
But that's before they built all the chicken houses?
Before they built this measure of them, yeah, but we don't really anticipate it so much that the air quality. Most of what you're getting with chicken houses are a nuisance smell.
Put a lot of dust out of them.
Oh, absolutely, there's particulates, absolutely. But that's not just around chicken houses, that's wherever people drive up and down dirt roads.
Yeah, when you put 150 chicken houses in there, it's gonna increase.
Oh, absolutely, yes, sir, you're right. You're exactly right.
Thank you, sir.
You have questions? Thanks, sir.
Yes, sir.
Good.
Thank you, sir.
If you check this property in J, the restricted property it's on, what can we do about it? What would we do?
If it is restricted property and it's mined in as restricted property, then we have a process that we go through with PIA. And we'll send, we'll notify the owner, we'll talk to them, notify them.
The owner's dead.
Well, the heirs then, in that situation. And there's a process we have to go through. That we'll get right on it.
Thank you.
Sir, I have one question. And this is off subject, what we were talking about. And this may be a learning point for all the council, and they may already know the answer, but if you live on restricted property and work for guess work anywhere, do you have to pay taxes to the state?
We do many letters for people who live on restricted and or trust property during tax season. And, that's for their accountants to, determine.
Okay. I guess, you know, I've heard from many people that live on restricted lands, and they said that they don't have to pay taxes to the state. I assume there's a letter, a waiver, or that you guys write for these individuals, or?
We say if, yes, they are, this is their property that they're living on, and yes, or no, it is or is not.
Okay, gotcha. The rest of that's up to
Yes,
them.
yes.
Okay.
That's the only thing that is.
Okay, alright.
Okay,
Yeah, thank you. Hey.
sir?
You're up.
So Tom, I'm just making everyone's questions about everything, so maybe it's in short is, on the Stigler Act, what we call the 47 Act, 1947 Act, that was an act that was introduced into Congress to eliminate the blood quantum requirement for people who own restricted land. So if there's a piece of restricted land that your great grandfather owned and you're gonna fall less than a half blood quantum, right now that land plot of restriction when you inherit it from him. But we're hoping to remove the blood quantum requirement so that even if you were less than a half, less than a quarter, less than an eighth, whatever your blood quantum was, you could still inherit that property and keep it in restricted fee status. So that's the law it's for the amendment that's been introduced into Congress, and it was supported by the chiefs of the 5 tribes and the real estate departments from the different tribes all working together on the amendment language. So it's been through the House, it passed through the House, it's on the Senate side now, and it should have a hearing, I think, in November. So, maybe even October late this month. So, it is making as good a progress as a bill through Congress can make, and it's had some hiccups along the way, but we keep trying to answer questions and calm issues, because it's a complicated area of the law. Like, if you're an Indian law expert, unless you do 5 tribes Indian law, this is not an area of law that you're familiar with, so it requires a lot of education for the House and the Senate staffers.
Just for the 5 civilized tribes?
Just for the 5 tribes. So.
I guess the pros and cons are, the pros would be, for us, is keeping the land in restricted status. I guess the con is for the state is that they're losing out on tax dollars.
Well, they're not losing tax dollars, they're just not getting any more. So they've already got, any land that's out of restricted status stays out of restricted status.
Yeah, they're not getting any.
Right, it's not gonna impact the state at all in terms of their tax base. It's just gonna make it more difficult. And land will still continue to fall out of restriction because people will request that the restrictions be removed for various reasons. It will just slow the bleeding and give people the opportunity to maintain a restricted status if that's what they want to do. So I really think that the effect is very negligible to the state. I don't see that they have not expressed any real concern about it.
If there's a congressman that's gonna vote against this act, this 47 Act, what would be their justification or their incentive or motive, I guess?
Probably it would be, in every instance that I've encountered so far, and I've answered a lot of questions about this, it is entirely rooted in ignorance. So it's typically that they don't understand how it applies to land or what the impacts will be. So they think that it's going to have a broader impact than it's really going to have, or they think it's going to affect other tribes that it's not going to affect. So they don't understand that it's a very limited parochial issue, it just is a 5 tribes issue. So it's almost always, any objections are almost always based on a lack of understanding about the nuance of the law. So I've tried to address that any time that it comes up. And I've been able to, everyone I've talked to, with how the conversation's over, they go, oh, okay, I don't care about that anymore. Or I'm generally supportive of it. It seems like a good thing if that's what the 5 tribes want.
I appreciate that,
No problem. The big ticket item that I've been working on, of course, is poultry. I find eyeballs and chickens, and working on that issue a lot. We've had a lot of community meetings. I missed the very first one ever that I missed, and Councilman Shambaugh was there, was able to field questions from the community, which I very much appreciated. I am very pleased at the progress that we've made on this. We set up the coordinating council on poultry growth with the state. We're able to get them to agree to bring together the stakeholders, the community people, the integrators, all the different folks that are involved in this, to have a conversation about, how to create a better situation, because this is obviously a situation that cannot go on in Delaware County and in Adair County over that chance to there last week. Jim Reese, the Secretary of Agriculture, and I drove around Chance America, gave him a chance to really see firsthand the construction, the amount of poultry growing that's going on there, and I think that was a very good opportunity for him. Good catch, Councilwoman. And then we also got the great news last week, or maybe 2 weeks ago, that the ODAP had issued basically a moratorium on any new permits being issued for any new or expanding poultry operations in the state. So if they didn't have an application pending, then they're not accepting anymore, which was, I think gives the communities the breathing space that they needed for us to have a chance to try to work out these other issues. Because as long as new poultry houses are being built, it was very hard for the citizens to stomach the idea of having conversations about how the rules need to be changed or amended. And I think now that we have a little breathing space for our communities, we'll be able to have a more productive conversation. So I was very pleased to see that the state was willing to go down that road and to issue that. It makes the situation much better. So I was very pleased about that. So I'm going to keep working with the state, trying to educate the folks over at ODAP, educate the different people involved. But so far, I feel very pleased. I feel like we're doing good work with this, and it's making forward progress. Probably not as quickly as what everyone would like. But I feel like we're doing the best job that we can, and hopefully giving some breathing space for our communities. The other thing that's going on is new self-construction has started at the landfill, which is absolutely essential and necessary, and I'm very pleased about. Our grant that we received for our electric buses, we'll have that kickoff meeting in November, and continuing to work on the split fuels issue and working hard toward total off-site disposal, which has been my goal from the outset. So we're continuing to work hard toward that goal.
Two questions on the poultry issue. Is there an expiration date on that temporary injunction to not issue any more poultry licenses?
There's no explicit expiration date. It just says until the coordinating council on poultry growth can get to a point where better decisions can be made. It's really kind of general language. It doesn't say, for a year or 6 months, but there's not.
Okay, I didn't think there was, but I thought maybe I had missed it somewhere. And also, from a legal standpoint, do you feel like there may be some type of predatory aspect to this, going after this specific area has been targeted for a reason? Have you pursued any type of angle that it is that they're preying on people that
I really
don't understand the outcome, or
I really think it is a combination of I think it's a target of opportunity versus a target of intent. So I think that the situation, certainly the situation in Southern Delaware County, I think is fueled by 3 things. One is its close proximity to the new plant Simmons is putting up in Decatur and the good highways between there and that processing plant. I think it's the low land prices in that area. And I think once one person gets established there, a lot of these people are related who are building these poultry houses. So they find some land that they like, they have a house and they have some chicken houses put up. The next thing they want to do is live close to their family. So I think that it's a combination of the low land prices, the location, and then it's just once they found a spot they like, they want to kind of stick together, this community of people who are building these houses. I think that that's what's going on. That makes the most sense to me based on what I've looked at. It could be that there's something else going on, but I suspect that that's what it is.
that makes sense. That's all I have.
Thank you, Sarah. This is out of culture committee. Could you tell me the status of that land that we're working on for the medicine keeper elder project?
Yes, ma'am. So the situation right now is funding. So we need, for the medicine keepers to be able to use that property effectively, it needs some minimal assistance, a gate. It needs some walking paths because all the medicine keepers are elderly, and for them to be able to get into the areas that they need to be able to do some sort of minimal, the whole plan is not to develop it, but we still need a minimal way for them to get in, a little bit of low impact development so that they can get in there and get down to where the plants and the different things are. So that's what we're working on right now is a project plan for that. And then we also need some protections for that property that, as we talked about before, having some protections for this as an area of conservation. And so getting those protections set up is something that we're also working on.
Thank you.
Questions?
More of a comment on the poultry deal. I did attend the the last meeting, that was Saturday. And the one thing that was a little different about this meeting is, we're starting to have a little more people from, different counties. People from Adair County were there, and, some people from Cherokee County were there too, with the same concerns. But another deal that, listening to all this, chicken rhetoric, I guess, is different things. It's come to my attention, what really comes to my attention is that, Oklahoma doesn't have the laws Arkansas has to prevent this. And this was an opportunity, and it was I think it was very calculated in what they did. They knew what they were doing. I mean, there was an abundance of water. I mean, everything that was there that they needed, especially water, that you gotta have to run a chicken house. You can't run a chicken house on rural water. You go out of business. It costs too much. So, they're tapped into the Rubidoo, the deep systems, and that was readily available. And I know that it's a great thing that, they've stopped taking any more applications, but, it's kind of like the barn doors, the animals are gone, and I mean, there's 200-something chicken houses gonna happen. So, it's far from over. And the thing is that, now we're starting to hear a lot from Adair County, and there's fixing to be a bunch going Cherokee County. So this isn't just about the Delaware County spot that's going on. So, I'm optimistic with this cooperative council that maybe there can be some things done, and the Cherokee Nation, is going to have a big role in that. Boy, it's hard to keep people calm, because you're dealing with their livelihoods, and there's a lot of emotions, and man, people are pissed off, and it's difficult to talk to them because they want help now. And, and it's just been a difficult process, but I just want to say that Sarah's done a very good job, and very, very proud to be a part of it. But, she's worked her butt off on this deal, and she's to be commended.
Back to the poultry issue. Sarah, I think this was done in a timely manner. I was expecting something to take place next year. And so with your persistence in going up to Oklahoma City that one day, visit with you there at the complex. I know you were up there tracing some people, tracing some buttons to be sure that all this came about. But, it would have never started without the movement of the community that elevated this issue to bring awareness with the Kingfisher and Brandy and even Councilman Shinbaugh. And in saying all that, it really saved the day for potentially the rest of the state of Oklahoma. Councilman Lay, he's on the brink of getting a lot of chicken houses up in his area, and with that big they're building a big chicken plant up there in Kansas, and they're looking at coming into Oklahoma up in the northern part of the state. So if your actions would have never taken place, many more houses could be being put on the ground here in Oklahoma, especially up in the northern area. So it's already too late. Things is already done, but you guys could possibly save the rest of the state from being flooded with the chicken houses. So, anyways, just want to say I commend you for that.
Well, thank you. It certainly is true that the community groups and the noise that they made were absolutely instrumental in that, and this could not have occurred but for the pressure that they have brought to bear and maintained. So I'm very pleased to see that. And honestly, it's great to have breathing room, but this is not an issue that's going to go away, and it's going to require consistent activism and advocacy at every level for there to be. People have to fight for the state that they want, and if they're not prepared to do that, then other people are going to make plans for them. So I would just say that people have to keep advocating for the kind of communities and the kind of state that they want to live in.
Yes, Sarah, they came before us, the Government Relations Department last month, and they asked us for so much funds to give to our PAC on 2 different occasions. It was an enormous amount of funds that we gave to a lot of elected officials from the state and some that were seeking positions with the state. And they led us to believe that this would help leverage negotiations with compacts, and I don't see why it wouldn't carry over to an issue that we're dealing with the poultry dilemma that we have. Because it wasn't a small amount that we ended up.
Right.
I assure you, so most of we've ever ended up. So if there are state representatives that are against what we're trying to do, then we need to use our leverage and look at who is on our side when we ante up so much money from our tax money. Because we were assured that these people are for Native American issues, and they just went down the line. So I say, let us leverage that and say, people, we're giving you an enormous amount of money here. We want your cooperation. So, and you know what I'm talking about.
Yes, sir. When I think it's, the people in Oklahoma City don't respond to me because I'm me. They respond to me because I speak for the Cherokee Nation.
Sure.
And because Cherokee Nation has been smart and persistent about making sure that its voice is something that people have to pay attention to. And that's definitely part of that, a component of that. So,
Sure.
I mean, that's why people stop and listen to what Sarah's talking about in this hallway. So I appreciate that. That makes the difference.
I think when we utilized the economic impact and what we contribute, especially the 5 tribes in Oklahoma, we represent 80% of the total population of 39 tribes. So we have more leverage in we know, or we think. So just trying to make you aware on some of the things that we've done from the council, because we've been sometimes not that excited about appropriating that much money, but we have. But we want some results out of it on the other side. If we need to make trips to the Capitol, we can do that as well. I mean, we all have representatives in our, and there's some races going on right now that are very close, so we want to be part of that. If there's any way we can help, then keep the communication lines open.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Okay. And one more thing. Periodically, I am asked for equipment and tools to maintain our Cherokee lands, whether it's Marcoma, whether it's just, I'm talking about lawnmowers, chainsaws, whatsoever. Would you ask your staff at this area, maybe even Little Hollow, that to do an inventory? Because I've had different departments come and ask me for, do you have, you know where we can get a lawnmower, we can get a chainsaw, we can get a weed eater. Would you do an inventory for us and direct this group to do an inventory of what we have here? So if another department needs it, then we would know where it is. And we should be able to do an inventory. We probably haven't done one in a while. Could we get one like in 45 days?
Well, paradoxically, I don't oversee natural resources, but I'm sure Bruce will be happy to get on it.
Probably 20 days.
Joe, I'll tell you, we do an annual inventory, annual, and we have a list right now.
You send it to the council before?
No. Yes,
Okay.
we have it available.
So we have one on north and south.
Yes.
Okay. Because, somebody asked me, you guys got extra lawnmower, extra weed eater, extra chainsaw. I said, I don't know, but I'll give it to Bruce. So I'd like to see one, to see where we are. Because then when you come back to us and say, we need this for Delani, I'm gonna go, well, wait a minute, Bruce, we just gave you 10 chainsaws last year. What happened? Yes, trying to be more accountable. Good. Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And, sir, you got a couple of things here. One, this coordinating council, how many meetings have they had here?
And what meeting?
And in this legislation, I'm gonna put Mike on with you, I guess.
Yes, sir.
So you all come back and report to us after these meetings, I hope.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And one thing, and it's Mike, the chief has mentioned, the funding that we put out to these state and federal offices is tremendous. It kind of shocked me this time when I got the call and I was told how much it was going to be. And I understand why it was kind of shocking. The other thing is that I've sent a couple of communications to you and the secretary about what may happen at Parkville, Kansas. And if that happens, I want to tell you what we've seen in Delaware County. And so we know what's gonna happen is the Melwater, Washington, and Craig County, northern tiers of those counties are gonna be filled with chicken. And I don't wanna inhibit job growth or anything. A lot of these the early chicken houses, a lot of them were ours, our people. And there were one or two spaced out. They're not that way. It's getting to be a whole new ballgame. And so I'm counting, you know, the Caney River Valley, the Veracruz River Valley, the Neosho River Valley, and all those lakes and feeder streams and creeks that go into them that will eventually end up in somebody's backyard. I think Brian's backyard is where it's going eventually down on the Arkansas. And so, do we want to protect those or not? And the state laws in Oklahoma, apparently they're just terrible. And so, rather than go around targeting a bunch of people from California with this funding that we do, that the chief just mentioned a while ago, let's think about targeting our own people. And some of them don't like us, and some of them do like us. Some of them are us. But this is we need to be at least as equal as Arkansas and Kansas. Their laws are far more restrictive. I've been reading up on them. Apparently, we let anybody do anything. And I'm seeing what's happening over in my area, Harley's area. We're all seeing it. Drive down 412 and you can see it and smell it. When I was a young man, I used to take off on my motorcycle and go to Arkansas. Things have changed, and we need to change. And y'all are doing a good job. I'm not complaining about y'all, but what I'm saying is we need to talk to our state reps, state senators, because those are the people who are going to go to the city and make these laws. We've got a lot of money in the governor's races on both sides, and one of those sides is the Cherokee citizen. I spoke to his cousin in Hawaii this weekend, his first cousin, not a 32nd cousin, but the first cousin. And so he's well aware of, he goes up and down the road, he rodeos along between Washington County and Arkansas on the Indian rodeo circuit. He's well aware of chicken house, he knows what's coming. And he is a Washington County landlord. They are us. So let's dig in. If that guy wins, let's make an arrangement to hold a hog price. If the other guy wins, that's fine. Let's make an arrangement to bring him home. And this is the way it works. It's unfortunate that you got to do that. This is the way it works. We got to change these laws, Sarah. And so I know that you're trying hard, and I know the chief just left. But here's the thing: we throw all this money at people, and I'm not sure how much it helps us in the long run. We've got to target what we want, and we're shotgunning. We're not rifling them in. Shotgunning doesn't work that way. It just puts a very big pattern on the wall. If you rifle them in and you get your rifle tuned up and you're ready, that target. And that's what we need to do. I don't want to inhibit job growth, but I don't want what's happening in Mike and Harley's area to happen there. Something's got to give. And it's not going to be us. We can't give up. We can't just let them run over.
Just to address Councilman Lay, we know that the legislative session starts in February, so you're kind of restricted, really can't do anything until then. Everybody knows that, we're going to have to pass some changes. If there's going to be changes, it's going to be through the state legislation. But again, that can't happen until February. That's when they can be. You start lobbying, we do need to lobby. Absolutely, I agree. But one other thing I forgot to say, and I should have said earlier, whenever I talked to Sarah about getting on this coordinated council, I really felt like I would need some help, and we needed some extra representation, and I had asked for Talina to be on the coordinating council, and she is gonna be on the coordinating council too. So I think that was important to get, our time involved in it, just for our sake. I thought it'd be important, so she is on it too, it's not on the, I don't know if we need to make an amendment for it to be on there, or it's just, she's just on there, but she is on the coordinating council also, I just want to, add that too.
Ma'am. No old business, new business?
This is a resolution in support of the coordinating council on poultry growth within the state of Oklahoma. And, I move for that motion.
Second.
Motion second, all in favor?
On this, if there's other, council members that is affected, by this poultry movement, is there a way to add that councilman that's being affected as well in this resolution? And no, nobody may want to be on it, but if a new councilor came in and let's say they came into Cherokee County and they just want to help be a voice, is that something that they could be?
I don't know, as far as how many members they want on this council. They really don't have to me, they didn't say that you couldn't have more than one member on it.
I would just need to probably talk to Jim Reeves. The initial setup was to have one member from the state house, one member from the state senate, and one member from the tribal council, so that we didn't have, because the concern was that if we had basically opened it up to any legislator of any of the branches, that we would quickly be overrun with maybe too many people into the group to make it workable. So we said, well, let's just get one from all the different branches, and then that would be the way it would work. So of course, if that's what the council desires, I would be happy to take that up with Jim Reeves. But that was the initial discussion, was to avoid not getting inundated with too many people to have a productive discussion. Because we've already got, probably nearly 30 people.
This is good, right?
Well, and even, I would say even if, at a later date, if other counties, start to be affected, like Councilman Lay or Walker Dick or whoever I wouldn't be opposed to rotating off and let somebody take my place, because we're all here for the same thing anyway, it doesn't matter. But, if your district is starting to get inundated with this thing too, and you want to be involved in this, I wouldn't be opposed to stepping back and let, you take over, and I would still, of course, do whatever I needed to do to help, but I wouldn't be opposed to that at all. I'm sure that's the way to time.
I have a suggestion. You may want to consider forming a working group if it becomes an issue that affects other council, within this council. So that you can address, so that maybe you can still be the point of contact for this, for the state-led one, but you guys can also have a working group within council to address all of the different districts' concerns, so that you can take those back to this coordinating council.
Just clarify, it's not state-led.
Okay, sorry.
I just have a comment to add to that. There's not anything that says that we can't visit the meeting, right?
They're not open to the public, they're closed meetings.
So you have to be on the council to attend.
Right.
That's
Thank you.
Right. Well, and I would be happy to call, if you individually want me to report out to you after the meetings, I will call you and do that. You just tell me that that's what you want to know, and I would be happy to call you individually and do that.
Councilman, the work group is feasible. I think that's a good way for all to have a voice in the matter. Then have Council Shambaugh do the comment.
Got a motion and a second? Motion and second. All in favor? Opposed?
Next meeting is announcements. I just want to congratulate T.D. Bluger as the new All-Indian Rodeo president for this coming year, for the next 3 years. I want to thank Cherokee Nation for sponsoring 23 Cowboys and Cowgirls that will be in Vegas next week, and it will be on TV. So, if you travel out there, it'd be great, but if not, you can watch it on TV. And I want to thank you for the sponsorship. Thank you.
Yes, sir. I just want to tell everybody, we got a fall trail ride, this Saturday at Bull Holler. And, I'd like to welcome everybody up there. We'll have free lunch and everything. Approximately at 11:30, we'll start a ride at 9 o'clock. It'll be about a 3-hour ride. And if you want to come, it's not mandatory you have shoes on your horses, but it's pretty rough country up there. So shoes would be a priority, in my opinion. But 9 o'clock, Bull Holler.
You have to bring your own horse.
Yeah.
Next meeting is on Tuesday, Motion second, all in favor? Aye.